Imagine for a moment that you have spent your entire life inside a dark room. You were born there, you learned to walk there, you memorized every corner, every crack in the wall, every shadow. You built your identity around that room. You knew exactly where the furniture was, how many steps from the bed to the door, which floorboards creaked under your weight. And then, one ordinary afternoon, while reaching for something you had reached for 1,000 times before, your hand brushes against a curtain you never noticed. You pull it aside, and behind it there is a window, and through that window light pours in. Not just any light, sunlight, and beyond the glass a world you never imagined, stretching out in every direction, colors you have no names for, a sky so vast it makes your chest ache. You stand there, frozen, the light warming your face for the first time. And in that single moment, everything you thought you knew about your room, about yourself, about reality, cracks open like an egg. Now here is the question that matters. Here is the question this whole exploration is built around. After seeing that light, after glimpsing that immensity, could you ever go back to feeling at home in the darkness? Could you pretend the window does not exist? Could you pull the curtain closed, sit down on your familiar bed, and tell yourself that nothing has changed? This is the journey we are taking together today. Because if you have ever felt a shift inside yourself, a quiet earthquake that rearranged something fundamental, if you have ever woken up to something you cannot quite name but also cannot deny, then you already know the strange truth we are about to explore. The truth is this: once you see, you cannot unsee, and that changes everything. This is not just philosophy. This is not abstract speculation. This is the lived reality of what happens when awareness expands beyond its previous boundaries. The philosopher and speaker Alan Watts spent decades pointing toward this phenomenon, using stories and images and paradoxes to help people recognize what was already happening inside them. He understood something crucial. Awakening is not like learning a new fact. It is not like adding information to your mental filing cabinet. It is more like suddenly realizing you are not the filing cabinet at all. You are the room the cabinet sits in, and the room has no walls. But here is where it gets interesting. Here is where it gets difficult. Because after that realization, you still have to live. You still have to go to work, pay your bills, talk to your family, navigate a world that operates as if the filing cabinet is all there is. And something inside you has fundamentally shifted. You have seen through a game you used to play without knowing it was a game, and now trying to play it the old way feels like wearing shoes that no longer fit. Not because the shoes changed, because your feet did. Let me tell you about something that happens to almost everyone who goes through this kind of shift. At first, there is relief. Immense, overwhelming relief. The weight you did not know you were carrying suddenly lifts. The constant background noise of anxiety, the endless mental chatter about who you should be and what you should do, it all quiets down, even if just for a moment. You taste something that feels like freedom, like coming home to a home you forgot existed, and in that moment you might think the hard part is over. You might think you have arrived somewhere, solved something, cracked the code, but then something else begins. You try to go back to your regular life. You show up at your job, sit at your desk, answer the same emails, you meet your friends at the same restaurant, order the same food, have the same conversations, and it all feels different. Not wrong, exactly, just different. Like watching a movie you have already seen, where you know how every scene will unfold. The surprise is gone. The grip is loosened. This is the part no one warns you about. This is the part that can feel like a crisis, even though it is actually a birth. Because what you are experiencing is the impossibility of going backward. You have expanded, and you cannot contract yourself back into the old shape. It would be like asking a butterfly to crawl back into its cocoon and become a caterpillar again. The cocoon is still there. You can see it. You can remember what it felt like to be inside it. But there is no door anymore. There is no way to unbecome what you have become. Alan Watts often used the image of a wave in the ocean. A wave rises from the water, curves and crests, appears to be a separate thing moving across the surface, and from the wave's perspective, if it had a perspective, it might feel very independent. It might have a whole wave identity, wave problems, wave ambitions, but at some point, maybe when the wave starts to fall back into the sea, it realizes something. It was never separate from the ocean. It was the ocean all along, temporarily rising up in that particular form. Now, can the wave, after realizing it is the ocean, go back to thinking it is only a wave? Can it narrow itself down to that small story again? This is the predicament. This is the beautiful, disorienting, sometimes lonely predicament of awakening. You have remembered something too big to forget. What does this actually look like in daily life? Let me paint a picture, because this is not abstract, this is concrete. This is about the texture of your days. Before the shift, you might have been very invested in certain things, your career perhaps, the trajectory of where you were going, the titles you wanted, the recognition you craved, or maybe it was relationships, finding the right person, being seen in a certain way, having your emotional needs met according to a very specific script, or perhaps it was security, building walls against an uncertain future, accumulating enough money, enough status, enough insurance policies to feel safe. These concerns did not feel like concerns, they felt like reality, they felt like the ground you stood on. But after the shift, something happens to these investments. They do not necessarily disappear, but they become translucent. You can see through them. You recognize them as part of the game, constructs you participated in because everyone around you was participating in them, because you did not know there was any other way. And now you do. This does not mean you stop having a career. It does not mean you abandon your relationships or give away all your money. But it means the fever is broken. The desperate touching relaxes. You can still play the game, but you know it is a game. And that knowing, that simple recognition, changes everything about how you play. You might still show up at work, but you are not there to prove your worth anymore. You might still be in a relationship, but you are not using the other person to fill a hole that cannot be filled from outside. You might still have money in the bank, but you are not worshipping it as a god that will save you from impermanence. The outer forms might look similar, but the inner orientation has completely transformed. And here is where the loneliness can creep in, because the people around you, many of them, are still playing the game as if it is deadly serious. They are still climbing ladders, building walls, chasing futures, and when you can no longer match their intensity, when you can no longer be outraged by the things that outrage them or excited by the things that excite them, a distance opens up. Not a hostile distance, not a superior distance, just a quiet recognition that you are standing in different places now. You love them, you wish them well, but you cannot pretend to be standing where you are not standing. You cannot perform an enthusiasm you no longer feel just to fit in. This is one of the reasons awakened people often simplify their lives. Not because simplicity is morally superior, not because they are trying to achieve some spiritual gold star, but because the complicated games stop being interesting. The social climbing, the strategic networking, the endless accumulation, it all starts to feel like running on a hamster wheel. You can see the wheel, you can see that it does not go anywhere, and once you see that, spending your energy on it feels absurd. So naturally, organically, without forcing anything, you start to step off. You start to spend your time differently. You start to value things you did not use to notice. A quiet morning, a genuine conversation, the way light falls through leaves, the simple pleasure of being alive without needing anything else to be different. But let me be clear about something. This is not a numbing. This is not a withdrawal from life. In fact, it is the opposite. When you stop chasing the future and defending the past, when you stop trying to be someone and just let yourself be, life becomes more vivid, not less. Colors are brighter. Sounds are clearer. The present moment, which you used to rush through on your way to somewhere else, reveals itself as infinitely deep, infinitely fascinating. You start to notice that this, right here, right now, is what you were looking for all along. The treasure was never at the end of the journey. The treasure was the journey itself. The treasure was your own presence, your own aliveness, which you kept postponing in favor of some imagined future fulfillment. Alan Watts talked about this beautifully. He said that we spend our whole lives preparing to live, preparing to be happy, preparing to arrive, and we keep pushing the arrival point further out. When I finish school, then I will live. When I get the job, then I will relax. When I retire, then I will enjoy myself. But the arrival never comes, because arrival is not a moment in time. Arrival is a recognition. It is recognizing that you are already here, you have always been here, and there is nowhere else to go. The destination is not at the end of the road. The destination is the walking itself. Now, when someone has this recognition, something very interesting happens to their relationship with the future. Before, the future was where the good stuff was. The present was just a stepping stone, something to get through, something to endure on the way to better circumstances. But after the shift, the future loses its hypnotic power. It is still there. You can still think about it, plan for it, take practical steps toward it, but it is no longer where you live. It is no longer where your attention constantly drifts. You become, in a very real sense, free from time. Not that you ignore time, not that you throw away your calendar, but the psychological weight of time, the burden of past regrets and future anxieties, it lifts. You find yourself standing in an eternal present that was always there, waiting for you to notice it. And this is why you cannot go back. Because the past you would be going back to was never the past. It was a mental construct, a story, a dream. The future you were running toward was never the future. It was another construct, another story, another dream. And now that you have woken up inside the dream, you cannot pretend to be asleep again. You can close your eyes, you can lie very still, but you know you are awake. And knowing changes everything. There is a kind of grief that can come with this. A mourning for the person you used to be, the life you used to lead, the simplicity of not knowing. Sometimes people who are awakening feel nostalgic for their ignorance. They miss the days when they could get excited about trivial things, when they could be distracted by drama, when they could believe that the next accomplishment would finally make them happy. That innocence is gone, and its loss can feel like a death, because in a very real sense it is a death. The person who believed those things, who lived inside that trance, that person is no longer here. Someone new has emerged, someone who cannot unknow what they now know. But here is the secret. Here is the redemption hidden inside the grief. What has died is not you. What has died is a limitation. What has died is a smaller version of yourself that you had mistaken for the whole. It is like mourning the loss of your cage while standing in the open air. Yes, the cage was familiar. Yes, you knew its dimensions, but you are not the cage. You never were. You are the sky the cage could never contain. Let me speak to something practical now. Because all of this can sound very lofty, very poetic, and you might be wondering what it actually means for how you live. So let us get concrete. After the shift, you will find that certain things lose their power over you. Criticism, for instance. Before, criticism might have sent you into a spiral of self-doubt, defensiveness, rumination. You might have replayed the critical words over and over, argued with them in your head, felt wounded for days. But after the shift, criticism lands differently. It still arrives, you still hear it, but it does not stick the same way, because you are no longer identified with the image that is being criticized. You recognize that what people are criticizing is their idea of you, their projection, their story, and you are not that story. You are the awareness in which the story appears. This is not arrogance, it is freedom. Similarly, praise loses its intoxicating effect. Before, praise might have given you a high, made you feel validated, inflated your sense of self, but after the shift you see through praise as well. It is nice, it is appreciated, but it does not define you, because you know that what is being praised is also just a story, a projection, an image, and you are not that either. You stand in a place that is neither inflated by praise nor deflated by criticism. You stand in your own center, which does not depend on external validation to exist. This might sound like a cold way to live, but it is actually the opposite. It is the warmest way possible. Because when you are no longer protecting and defending a fragile self-image, you become available, truly available, to the people in front of you, to the moment you are in, to life as it actually is. Your energy is not being consumed by the exhausting project of being someone, so that energy becomes available for presence, for love, for genuine response. You can listen without planning what you will say next. You can see without filtering through judgments. You can be without performing. This is the gift hidden inside the death of the old life. Space opens up, immense, loving, creative space. And yet the world keeps spinning. The world does not stop because you have changed. Your bills still arrive. Your responsibilities remain. The people around you still expect you to be who you used to be. And here is where a delicate dance begins. The dance of living in the world while no longer being of it. The dance of honoring your old commitments while no longer being imprisoned by them. The dance of relating to people who are still dreaming while you are somehow impossibly awake. This dance requires patience. It requires compassion. Compassion for others who are still caught in the same traps you were caught in, and compassion for yourself, because awakening is not a finish line, it is a beginning. There will be days when you forget everything you have seen, days when you get sucked back into the old patterns, the old fears, the old reactions, and that is okay, that is part of it. Awakening is not a state you achieve and then maintain forever. It is a direction you keep turning toward, a home you keep returning to. Each forgetting is an opportunity for a fresh remembering. Each stumble is an invitation to stand up again with more kindness, more humility, more humor. Alan Watts had a wonderful way of talking about this. He refused to be solemn about it. He refused to make enlightenment into a heavy, serious achievement that you had to protect and defend. He saw it as more playful than that, more absurd, more delightful. He understood that the cosmic joke is that we were never lost. We were always home. We were always the ocean pretending to be a wave. And when you get the joke, really get it, you cannot help but laugh. Not a mocking laugh, a relieved laugh, a laugh of recognition. Oh, it was me all along. It was always me. I was seeking myself, running from myself, hiding from myself. And here I am. Here I always was. So what happens to the old life? It does not disappear. It transforms. The same situations, the same people, the same activities, they all become vehicles for something new. Your job becomes an opportunity for presence rather than a ladder to climb. Your relationships become laboratories of love rather than contracts of need. Your challenges become teachers rather than enemies. Nothing is wasted. Everything is included, but everything is seen through new eyes. And if you are listening to this and recognizing yourself, if you are feeling that quiet confirmation that says, yes, this is what happened to me, this is what is happening, then know that you are not alone. Know that this path, while sometimes lonely, is walked by many. And know that the disorientation you feel, the sense of not fitting anymore, is not a problem to be solved. It is a sign that you have outgrown a container, a sign that something larger is being born. The butterfly does not grieve the cocoon. It spreads its wings and discovers what flight means. It enters a world it could never have imagined from inside that dark, safe wrapping. And that world, this world, is waiting for you, not somewhere else, not in some future moment, but right here, right now, in the very breath you are taking, in the very awareness that is reading these words. So no, you cannot go back. But why would you want to? Behind you is a room you have outgrown, and ahead of you, all around you, within you, is something vast and radiant and alive, something that has always been here, waiting for you to turn around and see it. You have turned, you have seen, and now the adventure truly begins. Here is a small practice, something you can carry with you from this moment forward. It takes only a few seconds, but it can bring you back to center whenever you feel lost. Pause whatever you are doing, take one conscious breath, feel the air entering your body, filling your lungs, and then releasing. As you breathe, ask yourself this question, not with your mind, but with your whole being. Ask what is aware of this breath. Do not try to answer, just ask and notice. Notice that there is something here that is always present, always watching, always at peace. That something is not your thoughts. It is not your emotions. It is not your story. It is the space in which all of that appears. And you are that space. You have always been that space. The shift you have experienced is simply this space, recognizing itself. Take this with you. Return to it often. And know that every time you do, you are coming home. Not to a place, not to a state, but to yourself. To what you actually are beneath all the masks, beneath all the roles, beneath all the stories you have told about who you are supposed to be. If this exploration has stirred something in you, if it has named something you have been feeling but could not articulate, I invite you to leave a comment below. Tell me what shifted as you listened. Tell me what you recognized. Share this with someone who needs to hear that their disorientation is not a breakdown but a breakthrough. And if you want to continue this journey together, to keep exploring these questions that matter more than anything, then stay close. There is more to discover, more to remember. The next time we meet, we will go even deeper. We will explore how the mind creates the illusion of problems and what happens when you see through that magic trick. We will talk about time and how freedom from psychological time is freedom from almost everything that burdens you. Until then, be gentle with yourself. You are doing something extraordinary, even if it does not feel extraordinary. You are waking up, and that is the most important thing a human being can do.